And just what do we say? Warning, disclaimer. I'm very sleepy right now. So hopefully what I say makes some sense. On top of that, for these second talks, looking into stuff that requires a little bit of research and digging in on my part. So if I stumble or happen to read just a bit, you have to excuse me there as well. But I want to start today in Exodus 21. And this is the law that was laid out, or part of it anyway. And this portion of the law that was laid out was addressing situations of it really does sound like law of personal injury and property damage. And so the Lord had it all sorted out with His people who did not have the Holy Spirit as we do to guide them, written on their hearts or anything like that. It was all written in stone, I guess. I don't know if the whole thing was written all in stone or there was some parchment involved. I'm not sure. That would have been a lot. Can you imagine? I know we used to have slide projectors in a big box with the slides you actually take out and put on the. Imagine those are all stone, and somebody had to lug that whole thing, 600 and some slides. But yeah, so this is the portion that deals with personal injury and property damage, and if this happens, then you do this, and if this happens, then you do that. And we'll just read a little bit here, starting in verse 28. It says, "If an ox gore a man or woman," now the word they're using for gore there is specifically for a horned animal to run someone through with their horn, kind of a jabbing with the horn, right? So if an ox gore a man or woman that they die, then the ox shall be surely stoned, to death, presumably there, and his flesh shall not be eaten. So if your ox messes up, the ox has to go, and you don't get to eat it. All right, the flesh shall not be eaten. But the owner of the ox shall be quit, which is really acquitted, because this was an accident. So no further damage than that. You lose your ox, you don't get to eat it. That's what happens if it's an accident. Verse 29, "But if the ox were wont to push," or same word there actually, to gore, that they used, "with his horn in time past, and it hath been testified to his owner, and he had not kept him." So in other words, if this is not your first offense, and this animal does this kind of thing, and you haven't taken care of that, and so therefore it's now negligence on your part to have this dangerous ox that you knew was dangerous, and now look, they've killed someone because of it. If it's because of your negligence, but that he killed a man or woman, the ox shall be stoned or killed, and his owner shall also be put to death. So there you go. If it was an accident, you're okay, you just lose your ox, you don't get to eat it. But if it's because of your negligence and somebody died because of it, well, then you are put to death. High price to pay. And then verse 30, "If there be laid on him a sum of money, then he shall give for the ransom of his life whatsoever is laid upon him." So there is a way out. You can offer up this ransom, which doesn't say how much here, but we presume is a large amount of money for a human life to be spared, because the offense was great, because it was otherwise punishable by the loss of your life. So there is another way out of it. Whether he have gored a son or have gored a daughter, according to this judgment shall it be done unto him. So I don't know if it's just referring to the previous there, or the fact that if it's a son or daughter and you're dealing with somebody's parents, good luck to you. In 32, if the ox shall push, same word there, gored, a manservant or a maidservant, or you could say slave, but I don't think slaves were exactly the same in this context, but they were the lowest on the totem pole and had to do the menial jobs. Very somebody in very low standing. But if an ox shall push a manservant or maidservant, he shall give unto their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. So you're going to still lose the ox no matter what. It's bad luck for the ox all around, not getting away with anything. But, if the man or woman that dies, well, is it an accident or not? It's pretty serious. If it's not an accident and you knew better, well, then you might lose your life unless you got a lot of money to get out of this. And if it's a son or daughter, same deal. But if it's just one of those slaves, just 30 pieces of silver, you're good. They're not worth much, in other words. And that's what they're saying here. And I did start to look up, and I didn't finish all of the research on it, but how much is that 30 pieces of silver really worth? And I got a little bit down the rabbit hole of research, about 120 hours 120 days worth of work, which is all right. And I don't know if you go down these rabbit holes, and that's what I like, looking into some of these things and digging in, because you're like, well, what does that mean? What significance does that have? And you start to think, what does 120 days, what does that have to do with anything? That's about 4 months. Is 4 months anything? Just sort of get to go down the rabbit hole, and maybe you can do some of your own homework on that. But we'll just keep it at, the price for killing a slave here by your own negligence just had to be repaid with 30 pieces of silver. So we know that the value of the slave's life wasn't very much by comparison to the others. They were of the lowest social standing, and it was almost a very dismissive compensation, like, oh, that'll cover it, kind of thing, for somebody's life. We are going to be turning to the book of Zechariah now, so give you some time to get to that one, and we'll be looking in chapter 11 of Zechariah. So this is where a prophecy sort of comes in the middle of all this, in the middle of the prophet Zechariah and what he was told. So this is centuries later, right? And everybody would know about the law that we just read about, and the values that were given. And there was a commandment to Zechariah to sort of put on a little play as a prophecy. I don't know if it was a one-man show, probably. He put on this little performance directed by God as a demonstration, as a prophetic demonstration to his people. It was designed to illustrate what was going on between his, as it often is, between the people and the Lord. And it had to do with the leaders of the time, or the shepherds that were involved there as well. Let's read in chapter 11, I said. We'll start in verse 12. Well, maybe I need a little bit more context. I'll just have to read here in the context. Zechariah is instructed by God to take on the role of a good shepherd for a flock that is being exploited and doomed to slaughter by his own leaders. And he takes 2 shepherd staffs, one named Beauty, and representing God's favor, or named favor, and one named Bands, representing unity. But the people reject the leadership. In response, Zechariah ends up in this play breaking the staff of beauty or favor, symbolizing the broken covenant. So here in Zechariah 11, verse 12, and I said unto them, if ye think good, give me my price. So it's talking to the sheep, which is kind of weird. But I was talking to the sheep. If you think it's good, give me my price. What do you think what I've done for you is worth? This is the good shepherd now. If not, then don't bother. So they weighed for my price and 30 pieces of silver. So they're offering to the good shepherd, the one that did them right, the one that will restore, the one that is, representing God and as we'll read later, Jesus himself. They didn't count it as much. They didn't count the value. They counted it as 30 pieces of silver. Through this play at a sort of good shepherd, bad shepherd kind of thing. And for the good shepherd, it was, what do you think that's worth? 30 pieces of silver. Not much. That should do it kind of thing. And obviously this is a foretelling of what would happen with Jesus later on. Let me just continue to read here. Verse 13. And the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter, a goodly price that I was praised at of them. And I think in certain translation he calls it a princely price, even just sort of a mockery. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. And yeah, and so there's this symbolic representation of the potter and in his house as well. And the potter, as we know through scriptures, represents God and God's ability to shape us like clay into whatever manner he chooses. And if something is marred, he can start over. In other places, there's stories of the potter where a vessel was shattered because it's not pliable anymore, and things like that. What I did find out here through this, because it seemed very random, give this 30 pieces of silver to the potter, like where's that coming from? You have to sort of dig into the rest of the symbolism, and apparently, where a natural potter back in these days would live, and sort of his front yard and an area where he would get the clay from, and there was certain areas I think outside of the city where this happened. It would all be like dug up, and there'd be pits everywhere with the clay, and like you couldn't farm this land, and it was basically a wasteland. It was no good, this land, and so everything there would be pot shards everywhere, and it was a wasted land. In some of the contexts I read, it was the same land used for sacrifices that were no good, and that kind of thing. So sort of a wasted, cursed sort of land that we're talking about, and saying throw this there where in this wasted land, and where the potter would dig up all the holes and all of that. And so all of this being symbolic and a prophecy of the future. So let's go to that and go to Matthew. Um, 26. Matthew 26. And we're reading about Judas. And we know that Judas had betrayed Jesus. And in Matthew 26, verse 14, Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went into the chief priests and said unto them, What will you give me? And I will deliver him unto you. And they covenanted, or they talked with him for 30 pieces of silver. That's what it's worth. So again, they're the prediction of what they thought, the value that they thought of this person, this good shepherd, that would save them from their own downfall. What is the price? What is the price of his life? What is it that you put the value on? Those who he is dying for. How do you value this? And it was that same, right? It was this 30 pieces of silver, the same value of that they would have all known is written in the law, like pittance for the life of a slave. And so that was the agreement with Judas. So the prophecy is fulfilled in that way and paid. And later on, just trying to Matthew. Okay, let's go to Matthew 27. And I forgot to write it out here, so I'm going to jump over. Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself, and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, what is that to us? No, we don't care. What are you talking about? See thou to that. Verse 5. And he cast down the pieces of silver into the temple, and departed, and went and hanged himself. And the chief priests took the silver pieces and said, It is not lawful for us to put them in the treasury, because it is the price of blood. And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. So, it's a field, again, that was considered desolate, no good, perhaps accursed, and they won't even bury their own kind in this field. They bury strangers in this field. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood unto this day. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, And they took 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value, and gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord appointed me. So we could see the parallels and the similarities of what was predicted. This value, this thread that's sort of woven through, and how this happened. So similarly to the little play that was put on by Zechariah to put the money in the in front of the potter in the potter's house or in his field, was happened here, but the money just kind of went and purchased a field, and that's all they could do with it, and it was a worthless field, and all of that. So it's just showing a lot of things, really. And this symbolism goes deep. Again, like I said, the fruit of what you get with the sin ends up being desolate. The fruit of what he did here, the fruit of any sin, rejecting the Lord in this case, results in something that is desolate, that is no good. The wages of sin are death. And I really like I really just like the parables and the diving into those things and going down the rabbit holes. Again, exploratory and new for me, but it kind of makes me think. Anybody watch any of those really well-known series like Star Wars or the MCU or anything like that, and you kind of see a scene that might just flash for a second or a mention of something, and you think, I wonder what they're talking about. But if you were to go back and watch another movie, then you'd see all these little Easter eggs, they call them, or canon or call out, and it's just kind of woven through, and you think, oh, what a masterpiece, because this refers to this and this refers to that. And the Lord was the author of that from the beginning, all along. Only he didn't have one production team writing all of these things. This was inspired by God over such a long period of time, many countries, many authors, but the ultimate author we know is God. And to be able to see how, even with all of that separation of time, of culture and everything else, how it all still ties together, is very cool to see. So it's enjoyable to sort of dig in. Another scripture that it's the honor of kings to search out a matter, that you get to go through and uncover these things. And as was said this morning, it's, you don't just pick it up and read it once through and you're done. There's always more to discover and dive in and explore and find out. And let me go to Acts 1. And I guess 18. Talking about Judas, I guess in 17, for he was numbered with us, and he had obtained part of the ministry. Now this man, so this is a recounting later, and it does sound a little bit different to the description we just read, but he said, this man purchased a field. Just talking about Judas, that he actually went and purchased the field with the reward of iniquity. And falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels gushed out. And it was known unto all the dwellers at Jerusalem, insomuch that the field is called in the proper tongue, Aceldama, that is to say, the field of blood. For it is written in the book of Psalms even. So we've got like 3-4 places in the Old Testament where it's talking about this already now. It's written in the book of Psalms, let his habitation be desolate, and let no man dwell therein. And his bishopric let another take. So, it's a little bit different of a description. People have tried to put it together. We don't really get the full picture, but perhaps, the leaders there, or the church there, ended up buying it in his name, or something like that. And perhaps when he went to do himself in, that he also fell down and this happened. So they tried to, we know that the word of God doesn't conflict, so the details of how that all played out, we can't really see, but the point and the main idea is still there, right? The price that he was gaining ended up being no good to him, leading unto death, and the fruit of it, the purchase of it, was all about death, all about desolation, all about being no good, and a cursed land as the fruit of what happened. So just interesting stuff. I thought I would share, and probably a little bit short today, but I will leave that there. Thank you. All right, we will have a time of prayer, and I'll mute